Hello, my crafty friends. Thank you for joining me today. I am going to be talking about some very basic stamping. We're going to make this beautiful card. It's a sympathy card with the Oceanfront Stamp Set. This is very simple stamping. I will give you some suggestions on how to get some nice clear images with your stamps. These are photopolymer stamps. I'll give you some tips and tricks for how to really use them to the best of their, the best of your ability. And I'm also going to show you some tips on stepping up the card a little bit. So this is our card. Unfortunately, often we do need sympathy cards, and sometimes it's a last minute. You don't really realize that you're going to need it until the time comes. So this is a nice, quick, and easy one. You could certainly adapt it. Birthday, thinking of you, lots of other things you can do with it. And I'm going to show you. Let's get started. So I'm going to move that to the side. We are starting with a card base. This is Sahara Sand, and it is 8.5 by 5.5, and it is scored at 4 1/4. And you can get 2 of these card bases from 1 sheet of cardstock. So that's our card base. Our next layer is 5 1/4 by 4, and this is just a basic white layer. 5 1/4 by 4, a little different than in my sample card because I wanted to show you some other options. So that is the next layer. And then for the inside, 4 3/4 by 3.5. I like to use this size because you can get 5 of them out of 1 sheet of cardstock. So it just kind of saves some paper. So often I will use this size for the inside of my card, as I'm going to show you today. All right, so the first thing I always do is fold and burnish the card base. There we go. And I'm going to set that aside so that if my fingers get inky, I won't get anything on the card base. So set that aside there. Here, I'll leave that there so you can see it. And then we're going to take our next layer. As I said, this is just a basic 5 1/4 by 4. It's pretty standard. We use it a lot when we're making cards. And I'm going to bring in the stamps. I already have them mounted. And as you'll see in the Oceanfront Stamp Set, I'm going to use these 3 here, and then I will actually use these 2 as well. There's a couple of stamps that are like rocks. There's some bigger greenery, and then there's this little one that kind of can give you speckles. Works well on the sand. So what I'm going to use is this will be my sand, this will be my water, and this will be my sky. So I have mounted these on a block. You could use a Stamparatus, but the photopolymer stamps work well on clear blocks. This is probably larger than I needed, but because I have multiple blocks, I'm going to go ahead and I wanted them all on a block at once for the video. So it's not a problem. It's never a problem to go bigger with your block, or not usually a problem, but you certainly don't want to go smaller than the size of your block. The closer you match the size of your stamp to the size of your block, the better you'll be, because if you get ink on a larger part of your block, sometimes you can get that transferred onto your paper. So just keep that in mind. You have to be a little careful if your block is larger than your stamp. My name is Linda Edwards. I'm with Crafty here in Designs. I am an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator, and you can find me on Facebook or on YouTube, all the socials at Crafty here in Designs. And if you see anything you like in this video that you'd like to purchase, you can certainly find me at craftyhereindesigns.stampinup.net. So the first color that I'm going to use, this is Pool Party, and I'm going to use that as my sky. So I'm bringing in this block that is kind of a rectangle, and I don't think it really matters which direction you use it. I'm going to use it this way. Now, you see, this is a really big stamp. There's not a lot of fine detail. So for this case, I'm going to go ahead and take my ink pad, and I'm going to actually tap it on the stamp like this, rather than the other way around. And for this card, I want this to start fairly high on the card base. And one other thing with photopolymer stamps that you need to know is you should be using some kind of a soft surface to give a little bit of, so there's a little bit of give in the stamp when you stamp it. So I'm going to put this pretty much up at the top. I am trying to center it. I lay it down, and then I'm gonna let it, give it a minute or two, not a minute, a few seconds to absorb, for the paper to absorb the ink, because it's such a broad surface. There we go. I'm very happy with that. Okay, put that aside, and I'm gonna close my ink pad so that I don't accidentally put my fingers in it, because, you know, don't know about you, but that happens to me. I'm gonna actually lower this a little bit on this block so that when I look through it, I can see this top edge, because I'm okay with a little bit of overlap, but I don't want to leave a gap there. And if it does end up leaving a gap, I can show you some tricks to take care of that. So here we go, same thing. I'm turning my ink pad over and inking the stamp rather than the other way around. So here I'm gonna just try and get a little bit of an overlap. And as you see, I've got the parallel, the top parallel to the sky. And one of the beauties about the photopolymer stamps is that you can't see through them, so that it's easy to line up some stamps. Now I'm pressing, I'm not rocking. That's important. There we go. A little bit of overlap is fine. There you go. So I'm happy with that. The nice thing about this photopolymer stamp is, can you see the dimension? Look at the dimension. That's one stamp. It looks like it could be multiples. It looks like a watercolor. So it's really, it'll give you that watercolor look with much, much easier, right, than watercoloring. Okay, so this last color that I'm using, it's actually the next color I'm using is Sahara Sand. It's the same color as my card base. Now you see, I did something different here with when I was stamping, applying my ink to my stamp. Because this is smaller, I'm actually doing it the other way. I'm tapping the stamp onto the ink pad. And this stamp is going to be, let's see, yes, I want it this way. And I'm gonna again match up these corners or these edges here. Overlap just a little bit, hold it, give it a few seconds to absorb into the paper, and there we go. Okay, now I'm gonna keep this here because I'm going to use the same ink to for my sentiment. All right, so this stamp with Deepest Sympathy is from the Something Fancy stamp set. This is a new one in the January through April 2023 mini catalog. It's got some wonderful sentiments in it, and it also has some dies that you can use to cut out the sentiments, but I'm keeping this simple today. This is something that's quick and easy, or if you're just getting started, this is a great stamp set. It's got a lot of different sentiments that I think for your basic birthday cards, birthday, congratulations, thank you, and sympathy. I mean, those are the ones that we send the most often, aren't they? So that's the stamp that I'm using from this particular set. It is a cling stamp. So cling stamps are red rubber. They already have the foam in them. I don't know if you can see that's got the foam. So I'm gonna remove this foam pad, and I'm going to go ahead and ink up my stamp. Now, one of the tricky things about the cling stamps is that you can't see through them. So, you know, the photopolymer we can see through, so we know exactly where we're stamping if you're gonna line something up. So I'm gonna show you a little trick that you can use to test your stamp. This is something that I do on a regular basis. So I've got my stamp, I've got my grid paper, and any graph paper can work for this. I'm lining it up with the lines on the paper and the words on the stamp set. I'm gonna line that up so it looks like it's straight to me. Is it? It's very close. If this way, if it was way off, I would know that I'd have to tilt the stamp a little bit to get it straight. So that's the way that I kind of test my stamp to see how close is it to the stamp itself to the label on the back. So I think it's really close, so I'm not going to worry about it too much. I'm going to go ahead and put this here, and I'm going to stamp this kind of down here in the corner. And I'll show you why, because we're going to... All right, now it's important not to rock, press, and lift. There we go. Great, I'm very happy with that. Of course, if you stamp it and it's crooked, or maybe you get some ink on either side, you could always just stamp it again on a piece of paper, on a like a white piece, and make a label for yourself. So you could take a scrap, stamp it on that, and then you could cut it smaller and just pop it up as a label if you end up with a problem with that. Okay, so the last thing I'm going to do stamping is I'm going to go ahead and put some grass in here. Now this one I went ahead and just did it with the same Sahara Sand, but I thought I'd try it with garden green. So bring a little more color in. And I'm going to bring this up. I think I want it to be up here because we're going to step this one up a little bit. There we go. And we're going to add some ribbon as well to this card. So again, just kind of showing you some options for what you can do to keep it simple, or if you want to just step it up just a little bit. Okay, so there we go. You could certainly adhere it just the way it is, be done. But you're going to step it up. So I'm bringing in this linen thread, which has a knot in it, so I have to unknot it first. And before I adhere this to the card base, I'm going to go ahead and actually, I'll show you a really easy way to do it. We're going to just, let's see, do I want to do one or do I want to do multiples? So I could do 3 and wrap it around, but I want to see if I have enough room there. So there's one option. I could kind of wrap it with 3 and then tie my knot there. I think I'm going to just do 1 though. So I'm just going to take some tape. You could use tape runner, or you can use, I'm just going to use some Scotch tape. And I am going to tape a little bit of this on the back of my card. All right, so I want it to come out right about there. So I'm just going to adhere a little bit of tape right there. Bring that around. Here, a little bit of tape, and then cut it off like that. And here we go. And then, rather than trying to fiddle with it and make sure that I get a bow while it's on that cardboard, I have 2 options. So in this case, let's see, I want a little bit more room. I'm just tying it around that thread. So you could make a bow separately and just put it on with a glue dot, or as you saw, I wrapped it around that thread, and I'm just gonna put it on like that. Let's see, how do I want that? I think I want it like that. Okay, there we go. And I am going to add a little glue dot, but I'm going to get exactly the way I want it, but I'm not going to do that yet. I'm going to wait until I have everything glued down. Okay, so we could stop right there, put that on the card base, and be done. And your recipient would be very happy with it. And I'm going to show you another way to step it up. You could also just add layers. So you add another layer. This is a layer of Pool Party. This layer is 5 3/8 by 4 1/8. It's just 1/8 inch larger than the white base that we stamped on. But again, really simple, but it does step it up a little bit. So you decide, you know, it is a sympathy card. Maybe you want to keep it really simple and neutral. But if you did it as a birthday card, you might want it to be a little brighter. Or maybe your, you know, recipient is just more a brights kind of person, right? So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to attach that like that. So now, how do we attach it? I'm going to just use liquid glue to attach this to the card base. Now, when it's only 1/8 of an inch larger, you do have to be kind of careful because you don't have a lot of wiggle room to work with, right? There's not a lot of space all the way around. So I've got the liquid glue because it gives me, I can kind of wiggle it. See how I'm holding it on the right side? I'm putting this edge down, and what I'm watching for are my corners. Am I lining it up pretty equidistant? And then before I press it all the way down, I can see on this side, am I pretty equal all the way around? And I am. I've got that pretty good. But, you know, I can kind of wiggle it a little bit if I need to. So again, you could just now adhere this flat with liquid glue. That would be fine. But if you wanted to step it up, you can use dimensionals, or you can use these foam adhesive sheets. So this is it's like a giant dimensional, but it's not cut into pieces. It is double stick. It's got a layer of foam in there. So it's going to pop up this whole card, this front like that. Again, adding some really nice heft to it. So it's actually even a step up from the dimensionals. Let me turn that over. It's also going to help hold that linen thread on the back. So this is cut, let me see, this is cut at 4 3/4 by 3 1/2. It's actually the same as the inside of the card. And then what I'm going to do is take this layer off and go ahead and, oh, again, now this I have to be careful because I don't have a lot of wiggle room. There's only 1/8 of an inch. So I think what I'm going to do is go from the top down. There we go. Okay. So you can't feel this, but there's some nice heft to this card, which just gives it a little extra presence, I guess. All right, so now I'm going to take, as I told you, I'm going to take a glue dot and I'm going to put it, I'm actually going to roll it a little bit so that it's small. I'm going to use my take your pick tool. And I want to see, where do I want this to be? I think I want it like that. So I'm putting this glue dot on the back of the bow. And then kind of line it up there so it holds a little bit better. There we go. So, okay. Come on now. Put those two together. All right. So there you have it. Now for the inside of your card, I stamped this earlier. This is just this Sahara Sand layer on the corner, and then there's the garden green stamp. There are the two grasses, the two stamps here. So I used both of them, and that's going to be my inside layer. I'm not going to attach it just yet because I'm not sure what sentiment, if any, I want to put on here. So I'm going to wait until I need the card and then stamp my sentiment and attach it. And the reason I'm going to wait is if I stamp the wrong, well, the other reason is if I stamp the sentiment and it's crooked, I can turn it over and restamp it. If I attach it and then stamp it and I mess it up, then I'm kind of stuck. I guess I could layer another one on top of it, but and I did the same thing to the envelope. That's Sahara Sand with this stamp, and then the two garden green. So there you have it. You have a simple and a stepped up version of the card. I don't know what happened to my envelope for this one, but it looks the same as that. So, do you have a favorite? Let me know in the comments if you which version you like, or if you like these kind of simple intros, kind of an intro to stamping card. Oh, one other thing I wanted to show you. I actually did cut this one out with a rectangle die, so that's another way you can stamp up the card. The reason I did that though was because when I stamped this stamp set, I had some ink that came over here that marked up my full sheet. So of course then I had to figure out a way, well now what do I do? It's, you know, it's in my way and I didn't want to see it. So I just used a rectangle die to cut that out so that you couldn't see the ink marks, but you could also just cut it with your paper cutter. So just another option for you. And this is the 4 3/4 by 3 1/2 size. So there you have it. I hope you like what you saw. If you did, give me a thumbs up. If you would like to see more, follow me on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. That's where I post all of my videos and pictures of the cards that I make. I hope to see you soon on one of the socials or at one of my card classes. Again, this is Linda Edwards with Crafty Here in Designs, and I'm here to inspire you to create some wonderful, wonderful designs of your own. Ta-ta for now.